The Pygmies, Part 3, from the Tanglewood Tales. As for my name, it is Hercules. I have come hither because this is my most convenient road to the garden of Hesperides, whither I am going to get 3 of the golden apples for King Eurystheus. Caitiff, you shall go no farther, bellowed Antaeus, putting on a grimmer look than before, for he had heard of the mighty Hercules, and hated him because he was said to be so strong. Neither shall you go back whence you came. How will you prevent me, asked Hercules, from going whither I please? By hitting you a rap with this pine tree here, shouted Antaeus, scowling so that he made himself the ugliest monster in Africa. I am 50 times stronger than you, and now that I stamp my foot upon the ground, I am 500 times stronger. I'm ashamed to kill such a puny little dwarf as you seem to be. I will make a slave of you, and you shall likewise be the slave of my brethren here, the Pygmies. So throw down your club and your other weapons. And as for that lion skin, I intend to have a pair of gloves made of it. Come and take it off my shoulders then, answered Hercules, lifting his club. Then the giant, grinning with rage, strode tower-like toward the stranger, 10 times strengthened at every step, and fetched a monstrous blow at him with his pine tree, which Hercules caught upon his club, and being more skillful than Antaeus, he paid him back such a rap upon the sconce that down tumbled the great lumbering man-mountain, flat upon the ground. The poor little Pygmies, who really never dreamed that anybody in the world was half so strong as their brother Antaeus, were a good deal dismayed at this. But no sooner was the giant down than up he bounced again with tenfold might, and such a furious visage as was horrible to behold. He aimed another blow at Hercules, but struck awry, being blinded with wrath, and only hit his poor innocent Mother Earth, who groaned and trembled at the stroke. His pine tree went so deep into the ground and stuck there so fast that before Antaeus could get it out, Hercules brought down his club across his shoulders with a mighty thwack, which made the giant roar as if all sorts of intolerable noises had come screeching and rumbling out of his immeasurable lungs in that one cry. Away it went over mountains and valleys, and for aught I know, was heard on the other side of the African deserts. As for the Pygmies, their capital city was laid in ruins by the concussion and vibration of the air, and though there were uproar enough without their help, they all set up a shriek out of 3 million of the little throats, fancying, no doubt, that they swelled the giant's bellow by at least 10 times as much. In the meantime, Antaeus had scrambled upon his feet again and pulled his pine tree out of the earth, and all aflame with fury and more outrageously strong than ever, he ran at Hercules and brought down another blow. This time, rascal, shouted he, you shall not escape me. But once more Hercules warded off the stroke with his club, and the giant's pine tree was shattered into 1,000 splinters, most of which flew among the Pygmies and did them more mischief than I like to think about. Before Antaeus could get out of the way, Hercules let drive again and gave him another knockdown blow, which sent him head over heels, but served only to increase his already enormous and insufferable strength. As for his rage, there was no telling what a fiery furnace it had now got to be. His one eye was nothing but a circle of red flame. Having now no weapons but his fists, he doubled them up, each bigger than a hogshead, smote one against the other, and danced up and down with absolute frenzy, flourishing his immense arms about as if he meant not merely to kill Hercules, but to smash the whole world to pieces. Come on, roared the thundering giant. Let me hit you but one box on the ear, and you'll never have the headache again. Now Hercules, though strong enough, as you already know, to hold the sky up, began to be sensible that he should never win the victory if he kept on knocking Antaeus down. For by and by, if he hit him such hard blows, the giant would inevitably, by the help of his Mother Earth, become stronger than the mighty Hercules himself. So, throwing down his club with which he had fought so many dreadful battles, the hero stood ready to receive his antagonist with naked arms. "Step forward," cried he. "Since I've broken your pine tree, we'll try which is the better man at a wrestling match." "Aha! Then I'll soon satisfy you," shouted the giant. For if there was one thing on which he prided himself more than another, it was his skill in wrestling. "Villain, I'll fling you where you can never pick yourself up again." On came Antaeus, hopping and capering with the scorching heat of his rage, and getting new vigor wherewith to wreak his passion every time he hopped. But Hercules, you must understand, was wiser than this numbskull of a giant, and had thought of a way to fight him, huge earth-born monster that he was, and to conquer him too in spite of all that his Mother Earth could do for him. Watching his opportunity, as the mad giant made a rush at him, Hercules caught him around the middle with both hands, lifted him high into the air, and held him aloft overhead. Just imagine it, my dear friends. What a spectacle it must have been to see this monstrous fellow sprawling in the air, face downward, kicking out his long legs and wriggling his whole vast body, like a baby when its father holds it at arm's length toward the ceiling. But the most wonderful thing was that as soon as Antaeus was fairly off the ground, he began to lose the vigor which he had gained by touching it. Hercules very soon perceived that his troublesome enemy was growing weaker, both because he struggled and kicked with less violence, and because the thunder of his big voice subsided into a grumble. The truth was that unless the giant touched Mother Earth as often as once in 5 minutes, not only his outgrown strength, but his very breath of life would depart from him. Hercules had guessed this secret, and it may be well for us all to remember it, in case we should ever have to fight a battle with a fellow like Antaeus. For these earth-born creatures are only difficult to conquer on their own ground, but may easily be managed if we can contrive to lift them into a loftier and purer region. So it proved with the poor giant, who I am really a little sorry for, notwithstanding his uncivil way of treating strangers who came to visit him. When his strength and breath were quite gone, Hercules gave his huge body a toss and flung it about a mile off, where it fell heavily and lay with no more motion than a sandhill. It was too late for the giant's Mother Earth to help him now, and I should not wonder if his ponderous bones were lying on the same spot to this very day, and were mistaken for those of an uncommonly large elephant. But alas me, what a wailing did the poor little pygmies set up when they saw their enormous brother treated in this terrible manner. If Hercules heard their shrieks, however, he took no notice, and perhaps fancied them only the shrill, plaintive twittering of small birds that had been frightened from their nests by the uproar of the battle between him and Antaeus. Indeed, his thoughts had been so much taken up with the giant that he had never once looked at the Pygmies, nor even knew that there was such a funny little nation in the world. And now, as he had traveled a good way, and was also rather weary with his exertions in the fight, he spread out his lion skin on the ground, and reclining himself upon it, fell fast asleep. As soon as the Pygmies saw Hercules preparing for a nap, they nodded their little heads at one another, and winked with their eyes, and when his deep, regular breathing gave them notice that he was asleep, they assembled together in an immense crowd spreading over a space of about 27 feet square. One of their most eloquent orators, and a valiant warrior enough besides, though hardly so good at any other weapon as he was with his tongue, climbed upon a toadstool, and from that elevated position addressed the multitude. His sentiments were pretty much as follows, or, at all events, something like this was probably the upshot of his speech. Tall pygmies and mighty little men, you and all of us have seen what a public calamity has been brought to pass, and what an insult has been offered to the majesty of our nation. Yonder lies Antaeus, our great friend and brother, slain within our territory by a miscreant who took him at disadvantage and fought him, if fighting it can be called, in a way that neither man, nor giant, nor pygmy ever dreamed of fighting until this hour. And, adding a grievous contumely to the wrong already done us, the miscreant has now fallen asleep as quietly as if nothing were to be dreaded from our wrath. It behooves you, fellow countrymen, to consider in what aspect we shall stand before the world, and what will be the verdict of impartial history should we suffer these accumulated outrages to go unavenged. Antaeus was our brother, born of that same beloved parent to whom we owe the thews and sinews, as well as the courageous hearts, which made him proud of our relationship. He was our faithful ally, and fell fighting as much for our national rights and immunities as for his own personal ones. We and our forefathers have dwelt in friendship with him, and held affectionate intercourse as man to man through immemorable generations. You remember how often our entire people have reposed in his great shadow, and how our little ones have played at hide and seek in the tangles of his hair, and how his mighty footsteps have familiarly gone to and fro among us, and never trodden upon any of our toes. And there lies this dear brother, this sweet and amiable friend, this brave and faithful ally, this virtuous giant, this blameless and excellent Antaeus, dead, dead, silent, powerless, a mere mountain of clay. Forgive my tears. Nay, I behold your own. Were we to drown the world with them, could the world blame us? But to resume, shall we, my countrymen, suffer this wicked stranger to depart unharmed, and triumph in his treacherous victory among distant communities of the earth? Shall we not rather compel him to leave his bones here in our soil by the side of our slain brother's bones, so that while one skeleton shall remain as the everlasting monument of our sorrow, the other shall endure as long, exhibiting to the whole human race a terrible example of pygmy vengeance? Such is the question. I put it to you in full confidence of a response that shall be worthy of our national character, and calculated to increase, rather than diminish, the glory which our ancestors have transmitted to us, and which we ourselves have proudly vindicated in our warfare with the cranes. The orator was here interrupted by a burst of irrepressible enthusiasm, every individual pygmy crying out that the national honor must be preserved at all hazards. He bowed, and making a gesture for silence, wound up his harangue in the following admirable manner. And I think we'll pause here and continue this in the next video. I hope you're liking the story of the Pygmies. As my friend Tigger says, ta-ta for now. I love you guys. Bye-bye.